All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our Thursday evening Parent Academy webinar session. Thank you for joining, and again, we are excited to have you as audience listeners and participants. I'm Dr. Dre Graham, the Director of Educational Equity and Outreach for Alachua County Public Schools, and I welcome you this evening. Tonight, we will receive some helpful information from our guest speaker, Ms. Paula Moreno. Ms. Moreno will share details regarding the importance of social supports in promoting mental health and well-being in our students and families. Just before we get started, let's review a few housekeeping elements. Please keep your microphones on mute through the duration of the presentation. We will be monitoring your questions and will respond accordingly. Please use the Q&A feature located at the bottom of your window. And please note that all Parent Academy webinars are closed captioned, recorded, and posted to our website for access at a later date for re-review and for any individuals who cannot tune in live tonight. Your questions will be answered at the conclusion of each session. If there's a specific need to have a personal conversation, the Parent Academy email is parentacademy@gm.sbac.edu, and we will get those questions or your requests for additional information forwarded to the correct ACPS or community team member. And now, I'd like to present our guest speaker for this evening, Ms. Paula Moreno, Outreach Coordinator and Safe Place Specialist for CDS Family and Behavioral Health Services.
Hello, everybody, and thank you guys so much for having me here today. Thank you for that introduction. I appreciate it. I'm very excited to be here. Let me go ahead and share my screen so that you guys can see it and we can get started. Awesome. So my name is Paula Moreno, and like he mentioned, I am the Outreach Coordinator, Safe Place Specialist for CDS Family and Behavioral Health Services. I do want to emphasize that while I am the Outreach Coordinator and Safe Place Specialist, this presentation and the information that is provided was provided and created, developed by our Family Action Team. Our Family Action Team composed of some great counselors and individuals who are experts on this specific field. They actually were originally going to be able to do this presentation, but because we do work with the social service industry and we work with children and families in crisis, they actually had to help some families tonight, so they were unable to do the presentation today, but they provided me with everything that I need on my end to make sure that all the information they wanted to share is able to be shared with you guys today. With that in mind, at the end, when it comes to questions, I will do my very best based on what was provided and the information and conversations I've had with them to answer any questions you guys have. But I will provide you guys at the end with my email so that you guys can send me an email, or we can, I can get all those questions that you guys have, those specific questions, if there's anything particular that you want to know, and we will give you a 24-hour turnaround on that so that I can provide that to Family Action Team and we can get you the correct answer so we are good to go. So like I said, thank you guys so much for having me today. I really appreciate the time, and let's get started. So CDS Family and Behavioral Health Services, we are a nonprofit. We have been here in the community for the past 52 years. So we have been definitely in the school system, in the community, through a variety of programs for a very, very long time. We continue to serve families and kids, and we do stretch further than Alachua County. We do cover 14 counties. So we are pretty broad when it comes to what we are able to offer and how we're able to help. And so with that in mind, I always say CDS is a little bit of an umbrella. And what we do is something that is very similar to wraparound services. And so what that means is that if one program cannot assist the family for some reason, then the other program is kind of able to take the place and help the family and so on. And if any of our programs, unfortunately, are unable to help those families, then what happens is that we have some really great partners in the community that we can reference out. And I do want to start specifically mentioning some of our programs, specifically our Family Action Program, since they were the ones who created the presentation. In the Family Action Program, It's a short-term counseling program for youth and families. So all of our kids are 6 through 17. We are not mental health, but we are behavioral health. Though today's presentation, it is focused on mental health. But specifically what the organization does on the day-to-day is we focus more on behavioral health. The difference really is that we do not diagnose, but we still treat and provide the coping skills the families and the kids need. So Family Action Counseling Program, ages 6 through 17. It is actually a 12-week program. I do apologize for the typo. And the awesome thing about Family Action is that what we consider the behaviors for Family Action is what I would consider, let's say, a spectrum. So we have those behaviors that are a little bit, they're talking back, they are being a little bit of defiance here and there. They're bullying or bullying others to the most extreme. They're a little bit more anger. They just do not want to go to school. They're ungovernable. We cover all of that. And so that's what we do as an agency and through our Family Action Program. But even more than that, we understand that, sometimes kids go through teenage years. And even if they are just being kids and dealing with those teenage years, or if there are some things that are happening in the family or at home or at school, we focus on helping all of the kids. And everything that we do within all of our programs, it is free for families and kids. And so, like I mentioned a little bit, when it comes to Family Action, it's youth that is struggling with bullying, or they are being bullied, or they're bullying others, poor communication, poor influences, they're skipping school, they're failing class, they're sticking out. So like I say, it's a spectrum of behaviors, but just any behaviors that we can help or that we can assist or that we can teach to better cope with, that's what we do. With that, we have our other program, which is our Interface Youth Program, and this is youth at risk and families in crisis as well. The difference is that with the Family Action Program, they continue to be at home. With the Interface Youth Program, it is a residential location for 30 to 35 days. Sometimes families need some space, and that's not bad. That's not a bad thing, and that's what we do. We provide a safe place for parents and kids where they can have their kids and create that sense of safety, but also we can teach kids structure. But more than that, we teach them skills, we teach them coping skills, we figure out what's going on, we talk to them, we build those relationships, we improve communications between families. They still have that counseling as well. They continue to go to their schools, we provide the transportation. So it's definitely not where you take your kids because we have bad kids. It's really not like that. Sometimes just families need that space, that space for them to kind of figure out what's going on so that they can come back a lot stronger. And that's what our Interface Youth Program does. Our other programs that I'll just mention really quick so that I can go into our presentation for today is the Safe Place Program, which is a really great opportunity. It goes directly with our Interface program. And like I said, it provides kids with a safe location. So for example, they're being abused, trafficked, ungovernable, they're skipping schools, any of those things. They just don't want to be at home or be at school. Instead of them being, in a random place or in a friend's couch, or that's what Interface is. It's a safe location for them. We also have SNAP, which is they teach 6 through 11 coping skills, aggression reduction, effective communication, and emotional regulation. It's basically the whole idea of stop now and plan. It is an evidence-based program from Canada. And the awesome thing about this program is that it teaches children to literally stop and think before you act. So it's a really, really good program. And then the last two, it's preventions, which we do have some teachers in some of Alachua County schools in our independent living program, which focuses on kids who are in the foster care system. So today's presentation, it is going to be focused on the importance of social support in promoting mental health and well-being in children, teens, and families. And the reason why this is so important is because we really need to understand, how children work, how teens think of things and deal with things for us to be able to help them and provide them what they need so that they can, have a healthier mental health, and that they can be better and be able to really deal with things better. I think that's the main aspect of it. But what is social support? So social support is the provision of assistance or comfort to others, typically to help them cope with biological, psychological, or social stressors. There's a lot of things when it comes to the systems that we have around us. There is, the immediate systems, which are, like I mentioned here, the direct influences, those systems that are like schools, parents, friends, those direct connections that we have. And then there's the broader influence that focuses a little bit more on government, policies that are happening, political factors, advocacy, social media. What we're going to focus today is a little bit more on the direct influences that affect that social support. I'm going to break down a little bit of how we're going to do this today with the objectives. So as we already did, we're going to define what social support is and those positive effects this support has on mental health. We're going to go a little bit over the risk and protective factors, the importance of peer support, and then the ways in which the community, the parents, the schools can aid in the healthy development of those positive support systems. And so with all of this stuff and with all of this information, I think it's very important to understand what is resilience. And so with that, resilience is a capacity to recover quickly from difficulties. And why is understanding what it is and why it comes from so essential? Well, it is important because it is created when a child has at least one caring adult that it aids in reducing risk factors. So let's process that information for a minute. For a child to create a sense of resilience, which is to recover quickly from a difficulty, they need to have in their lives growing up at least one caring adult that helps them in reducing those risk factors. So what is a risk factor? To understand what a risk factor is, we need to understand that it's anything that is observed to be a negative behavior or any change that could be into a negative behavior. So it could be an abrupt little change, or it could be, they're on the path towards negative behavior. Things such as isolated behavior, unmotivated attitudes, there's mood changes. They're hanging out with antisocial peers, which is basically negative influences. They're experimenting with substances. They're doing dangerous activities. And those risk factors really go from very low range risk factors, such as, they're just not talking, they're being isolated, to more extreme factors, such as they're angry, they're being violent. So all of those things. And so what is that protective factor, right? Which is where we're coming into this conversation. That protective factors are things that reduce or eliminate the risks. They encourage and promote healthy feelings and behavior in our youth. And so this is why it's so, so essential. And so how does social support promote that well-being, right? How does it work? Well, when it comes to school, right? Youth who feel connected either at school or at home are found to be less likely to experience high-risk behaviors related to sexual health, substance use, violence, mental health challenges in adulthood, as they do not only feel supported, but they also feel connected. This also helps create those healthy models and create those healthy outlets which they can partake. This creates the sense of hope. It alleviates stress. It decreases depression symptoms, increases that path towards a better communication, because they feel that they're no longer alone. It provides the youth with a healthy model to promote healthy decision-making. And this support fosters a sense of trust, a sense of safety. It adds to a sense of being cared for. And this support and having a sense of belonging really adds to the feeling of that connection that could be created in schools and in the family, or really with that one specific adult that provides the support and that help that the child needs. And so when it comes to school specifically, right? School connectedness in particular can have a very positive effect on academic achievement, including possibly having higher grades, better test scores, having better school attendance, staying in school longer, so we don't have that kids being in truancy or kids dropping out of school. It helps them develop personal attitudes towards self-respect, self-compassion, social skills, positive thinking habits, healthy coping skills, and skills for achieving goals, specifically if they have someone in their lives who believes in them. So we go back into having that one person, that one support has a huge influence on our kids. It has a huge influence on the development of who they are becoming and how better they're going to be able to cope with situations, cope with life, cope with whatever happens when they're adults, but also during their teenage years, which, you know, when they're dealing with so many influences, dealing with so many substances, and dealing with very difficult decisions, they will know how to handle or go through life a lot better if they have that positive role model. And so those are some of the great benefits that make this issue such an important element to our kids and to our families. And when it comes to why do teens have challenges with coping with stressors, right? Well, I think it's sometimes, you know, when we go through life, we've already gone through so many things coming from an adult perspective that we forget that we were teens, that we were kids once upon a time. And when it comes to that, it is important to understand that when you're a kid, you're basically dealing with things for the very first time. It doesn't matter what it is, you're dealing with really anything for the first time in your life. If you don't have somebody next to you or helping you or guiding you and kind of maneuvering where you should be or how you should handle situations, then what happens is that the child is going to figure it out. They're going to figure it out, but maybe it won't be the way that it's going to be a positive figuring out their situation. Maybe that's when they start getting into that negative influences, because that's what they see, that's what other peers are doing, that's what they think they should be doing, because like I said, this is the first time they're figuring out, and if they don't have somebody who's helping them through this process, then they're just kind of on their own trying to figure life out. And as a child, this could have very negative repercussions. Another very important thing to consider this, and I think it's something that we also, you know, sometimes we forget and sometimes we just aren't aware of, is that the prefrontal cortex of our brains, and specifically on children, does not develop until their mid-20s. So let's process that. The prefrontal cortex doesn't develop until the mid-20s. So what does that mean? This is the area of the brain that is in charge of emotion regulation, impulsivity, decision-making. So in a sense, teens are really fighting against their own biology when it comes to decisions, when it comes to what they want to do. And without that supporting influence, it really could go down a very negative road if they don't have that supportive person or individual or school entity or mentor who can really guide them when it comes to decision making. And then with this, it also can lead to sometimes mental health issues, environmental stressors, peer pressure. There's so many things that are going on nowadays, right? And even life-threatening circumstances like school shootings. So there is this idea, right? The whole fight or flight, that for a long time it was believed that it comes from our ancestors, right? It comes from the time where we had the woolly mammoths and we had to kind of be like ready either to fight or flight, right? So for the full aspect of our own survivals. And as our civilizations have moved on and we have progressed into better things, we think that we are no longer in need of this, right? Because we're no longer fighting or having to fight against these creatures, right? Well, now we have to really think about what's going on in society, what's going on with our schools, what our kids are struggling with nowadays. And even though you think like the mammoth situation happened a long time ago, think about the fact that our kids are now having to think about a possible school shooting. These are moments and situations that they are not trained. They don't know how to cope with things. They literally are put into a situation of a flight or fight because they don't know how to properly deal with these circumstances. And so with that, it's organizations in the community and that sense of school with the police and the idea of those trainings, all of those things are what help support and teach and guide our children on how to deal with the circumstances, right? But to some extent, it is that idea of at the beginning, they just don't know how to deal with it. And it's us as a community, as parents, as teachers, as community advocates and resources to be able to guide teens and children on how to deal with circumstances and how to deal with environmental factors. And then with that is the whole idea that they will either cope in a functional or they will cope in a dysfunctional manner, depending on those external influences, depending on that social support, depending on the healthy activities that promote a sense of safety, or it goes the other way. If they didn't get those healthy and safety activities, it's the way that at the end they deal with things and how they deal with it. So this is why it is so important. It's why it's so essential to have that social support, that they can rely on those third factors to create a sense of safety for kids. And so going back to this, it's important to understand these two famous quotes, right? Idle hands are the devil's playground, and you are the company you keep. So there's a documentary out there, and it's about a guy who is doing a documentary on a guy who is in the mafia. And in the middle of the documentary, he finds a friend who used to be his neighbor. They grew up together, same neighborhood, really right next to each other. They grew up. So the interviewer asks him on the spot, why did you join the mafia and he became a lawyer if you guys were raised in the same environment, pretty much? And so what he said was that, well, his parents were lawyers. And so what they did is that they kept their children on extracurricular activities. They had that support. They had that one-on-one. They had that, they were always doing something, right? While I, and specifically the guy who was in the mafia, he didn't have that. And not because he had bad parents. He didn't have bad parents. It was actually because his parents were working really hard that they just didn't have that space to be with him all the time. So most of the day he was by himself, and all he was seeing is all of these people around him that were getting a lot of money, and they were doing certain things, and they were getting certain things that he was starting to look up to, because that is all he saw. So it comes down to that idea, going back into this whole presentation, of it really comes down to the support you have that does influence the environment, right? The idea of two very similar lives, but very different outcomes. So it comes to the idea of the adolescence, of youth, of children. This is a very crucial period for developing social and emotional habits, essential for mental well-being. This is the period where they should be having very healthy sleep patterns. They should be exercising. This is the period where they either develop or they don't develop those essential coping skills. That idea of structure, problem solving, interpersonal skills. They learn to manage their emotions during their youth years. And it all comes down to the protective and supportive environment in the family, in the school, and the broader community. They all come together. And this is why it's not just us here in the social services industry. It's not just the teachers who are providing the space for you guys to, learn more about these opportunities, or about this information. It's not just about the parents. It really is a combination of all of us working together to promote and to help and to facilitate, but most importantly, to be there for our kids. And it's so important because they do develop, and it cultivates a strong friendship and bond. So when it comes to this, I do want to emphasize. So we focus a lot sometimes on the importance of creating those relationships and those bonds with mentors and those teachers and parents and even community organizations. But what I do want to emphasize is that there is another aspect and a very essential key to the development of teens when it comes to those social factors. And it is the relationships and the friendships that they create. Because let's be honest, when we are all growing up, sometimes if we are in trouble, if our kids are in trouble, they would sometimes rather go to a friend to figure out their issue or to talk about the issue first rather than their parents, sometimes before their teachers, sometimes before somebody within their own family, right? And so it is very important that when it comes to isolation, kids who are being isolated, that we do not take them down that path, because it is very important for them to be able to create those friendships, create those bonds, because also through those bonds is going to be what's going to either help them cope with things or not. It's going to be the influence that makes them think twice about the things that they're doing or push them over. And it comes down to those negative and positive influences around them. And so the foundation of a support system outside the family and extended family that a young adult can count on is very, very essential as well. And this is why we really wanted to make sure and include it in this presentation. So I'm going to go over this a little bit fast, just to emphasize the importance of that aspect when it comes to the pro-social groups and friendships. And like I said, it really focuses on the aspect of they might feel isolated, and isolation usually grows as the young adult is confronted with many difficult problems. This leads them to a path of negative peers who can prey upon stronger negative peer influences. So the worse the person feels, the worse the decisions they make. They may start to be trying, experiment, or start using substances. They may begin to be disrespectful, break the rules, find themselves arrested or rearrested. So it really can go down a negative path if they don't have that group around them. It could be, like I said, the family, teacher, or just that friendship. But even there, it doesn't really have to be a friendship. It could be also an organization. It could be those after-school programs. It could be those extracurricular activities, those locations where it provides the kids with good pro-social bonds that helps them, teaches them how to deal and cope with things. And so some things that we do want to emphasize is that when we're seeing, how our kids are doing and how they're handling things, adults will notice young adults become distant, argumentative, and silent. They see that they're lack in sleeping, eating problems. And so with all of this, is without pro-social bonds, no one is there to help, which can be detrimental. So this is why it's so important to create those social bonds. And going back to the whole idea of why, right? Positive peer influences promote healthy mental health because the young adult has growing opportunities to have fun, enjoy life, while the other side of a negative peer influence or no peer influence may conclude with a life of fear and a very unhappy life. So one of the main things is that young adults need to look forward to things. They are going through a lot of things. The youth that we serve it's not just the things that they're dealing in at school, the things that they're dealing in at home. Parents are also dealing with a lot of things. You know, we live in a very complicated society, and there's a lot of things that are going on in the world. And so all of these things create stress. Stress is a matter of how do the children cope with this stress. And the best path for this is to have that strong relationship with someone that can help them deal with life a little better. So without the ability and opportunities to have fun and find enjoyment in life, mental and emotional problems can start and progress in a negative cycle. And so going back into this, when they find life enjoyable and happy, they will have a significant progression of these problems. And one of the most critical ways they can find this happiness is through that help with their peers. And so what can schools do? What can the community do? And what can parents do, right? It is very important to create those support groups, those after school programs, or just places where children can come together. Groups can ease socialization, pressures, and increase social skills. They can reinforce positive behaviors. They can teach boundaries, establish rules, routines, structure, and expectations. They offer referrals, mentoring programs, volunteer opportunities, and connect the youth to supporting adults, which goes back to the original quote that we mentioned. When they have nothing to do, that creates trouble, right? We want to be able to keep our children busy, but busy in positive things, things that they are learning, that they're learning from each other, that they can have hope, they can have goals, that they can see what they're able to do themselves, and that they have somebody next to them who continue to pushes them in a positive direction. They provide parents and families with the resources that support positive parenting practices, such as open, honest communication and parental supervision. So definitely, how I was saying, we all work together, right? And it's opportunities like this where it provides that education that we all need to work together. And then what can you guys do when it comes to families, when it comes to parents? Definitely understand that we're always here to help when it comes to the schools, when it comes to our organization, CDS Family Behavioral Health Services. And everything that we do is, like I said, free to families, free for the kids, and we're here to help. So if at any point you know your child is dealing with things, they don't know how to properly cope with things, and you are doing everything in your power to make sure that they are going towards a positive directions, but sometimes they need that help, we are here to help you. So just understanding that there are resources out there, that Gainesville is very good about the things that the community is able to offer and how they can help the community as well. Create those healthy decision making models. So at home, the way that you guys provide the guidance for the kids is very important. Openly communicate with the kids, be honest, including about the values of the home. Communicate regularly with teachers and administrators, and encourage those extracurricular activities that promote healthy social interactions, as well as family time, parent engagement in schools and in homework. All of these little things can really make a difference and can really impact the outcomes of the kids and the adults and the next generation that we're creating. And so what can we do to help you guys, right? So we continue to provide any type of assistant education, parent education, youth education, and also the counseling help that you guys need to provide you with information about the current risk and factors, because generations change and things in the environment change. So we always have to be up to date with what is happening, what are our kids dealing with nowadays, so that we can better be able to assist them, right? Ask children about family and peer relationships and school experiences. Encourage positive parenting practices. We advocate for our kids. We educate parents on health communication, strength-based counseling, and most importantly, safe place. And this is, like I said, this is what we do. We provide a place that is always going to be a safe haven for kids. Because sometimes even if, it's one day that they need just that one space for parents, we can still be that one place where they can go and the parents will know the kids are safe. the kids are going to be learning something important. And at the end of the day, they're receiving those learning very important educational coping skills and life skills that they are going to need to deal with life. So that basically concludes the presentation for today. I hope you guys liked it. I know it was a lot of information. It was a lot of different things. Like I said, I can answer any questions you guys may have, but also if there's very specific questions, you can always email me and I can get those to our Family Action Director, who can definitely get us those answers. Thank you guys so much for your time as well. I really appreciate it. I try to, you know, be very direct, but also provide you guys with all the information you guys need.
Paula, thank you so much for just this great information. If you can just leave that slide up, we'll leave that there so that the families have your contact information in case they want to write it in. And I will wait a moment to see if we have any questions that pop up. Once again, please use our Q&A feature in order to provide your feedback or your question at this time, and we'll wait a couple moments to see if we have any questions that pop up. This is incredibly helpful information. We're so appreciative for Paula taking out the time to be with us tonight.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
And as a reminder, as we wait for any questions that may come in, we will post this on our website in order for access at a later time if you'd like to share it with anyone or come back and reference the information that was covered tonight. Absolutely, we're really glad that you enjoyed this presentation. Thank you for that comment. I had someone who just thank you for that. It was very informative. All right, and with that, it doesn't appear that we've got any additional questions coming through on the Q&A. Once again, if you do have any questions that come up, you can reach out directly to Paula, who will put you in the direction and contact with anyone else who you may need, or you can reach out to the Parent Academy email, and we will be sure to get that information to you as well at parentacademy@gm.sbac.edu. So thanks again, everyone, for joining tonight's Zoom. We appreciate your participation each week. You are available to connect with us for more information, informative presentations and discussions. Once again, I am Dr. Dre Graham, the Director of Educational Equity and Outreach here in Alachua County Public Schools. Next Thursday, October 13th, Palinthia Boswell, the Santa Fe Achieve Middle School and Family Program Specialist, will be providing information on the Santa Fe Achieve program. We hope you'll join us again next week and have a great evening.
Thank you.